Welcome back. The judge overseeing President-elect Trump's election interference trial has granted the special counsel's motion to dismiss the case. But we likely haven't heard the last from Jack Smith. Despite the case's formal end in federal court, Justice Department protocol requires the special counsel to file a report to the Attorney General explaining his charging decisions before he steps down. It will also be Smith's first chance to refute baseless allegations that he went after Trump for political reasons or was interfered with by Biden appointees. Joining me now is New York Democratic Congressman Daniel Goldman. He's, of course, a former assistant U.S. attorney and was a lead counsel for the first impeachment inquiry into Donald Trump. Congressman, thank you for being here. You called the end of Jack Smith's probe into Donald Trump a, quote, sad day for the rule of law. Does this mean that you think Trump will never face repercussions for his conduct surrounding the 2020 election?
Yeah, I think that's very likely. We'll see what happens in the Fulton County case, but given what happened in the New York City case, I don't expect Donald Trump will be inside a courtroom for the next 4 years. And there were many of us who advertised that that was his main purpose for running for president, was a get out of jail free card. And by winning the election, that has proven to be true. And it is just another example of how Donald Trump is above the law. The most recent before this being the Supreme Court's opinion, giving him a significant immunity for anything that could be conceived as an official act.
And when you say that he's above the law here, is that you kind of conceding that point, throwing your hands up in the air, or is there anything else that can be done to try and hold him accountable for what happened?
Well, look, we're going to get a report from Jack Smith. We're going to get two probably. They will outline in exhaustive detail, I expect, all of the evidence that those two investigations uncovered and lay out in a lot of detail. In an ordinary course, a House of Representatives will likely read that report and would say, wow, this is a pretty gross violation of law. This person should not be president. And there would be an impeachment investigation, and he would ultimately potentially be removed, at which case you could reinitiate these criminal cases. We all know that's not going to happen. And so with the Republicans in control of the House and the Senate, and now Donald Trump as president, Democrats don't have the power to initiate an impeachment investigation or really any investigation right now into Donald Trump after he takes the presidency over again. And that is something that all Americans are going to have to grapple with, because that is the result of the election.
There is going to be an election in 2 years, though. The midterm elections could change the balance of power, particularly in the House of Representatives. Would you support the idea of an impeachment probe if Democrats took back control of the House, or do you think that this ship has sailed?
Look, that's far off. We'll have to see. I'm not going to weigh in on whether that would be appropriate right now. I led the first impeachment investigation, and I will say that I think impeachment has exhausted its utility as a check and balance or a measure of accountability on a president, given the hyperpolarization and partisanship where too many elected officials put their party over their country. It is almost impossible to imagine getting to 67 votes to convict a president in the Senate under the current circumstances. And so I don't think anyone should be thinking that impeachment is a panacea in 2 years. That's the way that Donald Trump is going to face accountability. Donald Trump will first face accountability in the midterm elections in 2 years. And we'll see whether he comes through on his promises to make life better for the middle class and more affordable.
Yeah, so to that point, do you sense a degree of fatigue among your fellow Democrats, that they've been fighting this battle against Donald Trump for more than 8 years? They now are looking at least another 4 years of battling Donald Trump. How do you break that sense if that fatigue exists?
Look, I think that's a real risk, to be quite frank with you. But what we have learned about Donald Trump is that you can't go chasing every crazy thing he does. And so, as I talk to my colleagues and I talk to advocacy groups, there's a much more sort of strategic, determined resolve to identify the areas where he truly is overreaching or potentially running amok under our Constitution. And so I think what you will see is a more measured but strong and unified response when Donald Trump does something truly egregious. Chasing impeachment investigations, in the minority, for example, is a waste of energy because it's just not going to happen. So we're going to really try to focus on areas where we can make a difference. And as you pointed out, Ryan, in 2 years, there's another election, and it's a very slim Republican majority in the House. Every single member of Congress, including the moderate Republicans, are up for re-election, and they are going to have to think about their re-election every single time they vote. So I don't expect the House to be a blank check for Donald Trump.
So let's talk about what the next 2 years look like for you in the minority, particularly for House Democrats. Republicans, as you well know, struggled mightily to pass basic bills to keep the government from shutting down, to raising the debt ceiling. Almost all of them, in fact, maybe all of them, passed only because of Democratic support. It was a much different situation then. Joe Biden was the president. Democrats controlled the Senate. Now you've got Donald Trump in the White House. You've got the Senate in control of Republicans. Do you think Democrats are going to bail out Speaker Johnson if his hard right flank pushes back against plans to do these basic things?
I think that really depends on whether there's bipartisan cooperation. I do not think that Democrats will bail out Republicans in the House in order to pass legislation if there is no negotiation, if there's nothing, frankly, in it for us. The Republicans have total control of all three bodies, and they are the ones who are responsible for governing now. They are the ones who are responsible for upholding our Constitution. They take an oath to the Constitution, just like I do. And so if Donald Trump is going to run roughshod over the Constitution, or Donald Trump is going to run roughshod over immigrants in our country, or the lower and middle classes, which he did in his first term, that is going to be on the shoulders of the Republicans in both the House and the Senate. And we're eager to work with them where they are willing, but we have no control. They have to initiate that bipartisan cooperation. We will be eager to engage in it where we can, but we will also be steadfast in upholding the Constitution and pushing back on potential efforts to undermine our democracy.
All right, Congressman Dan Goldman, I hope Room Raiders watching, because that backdrop with the aquarium, the Emmy, the whole night, that's just 10 out of 10 from my book. Terrific.
This was in honor of NBC. I got the Emmy way back in 2000 with NBC.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.